Lost sweetheart. Commander Jack Harmon's voice cut across the briefing room, and the laughter came fast and cruel. He didn't even bother to look up from his maps. He waved a hand toward the quiet woman standing in the doorway, the way a man waves off a waiter who's wandered into the wrong banquet. "Kitchen's down the hall, honey." "Filing's 2 floors up." His men roared, and in that single careless moment, Commander Harmon had no idea he had just insulted the only person alive who could keep his entire team from walking straight into a grave. If you're watching this right now, do me one small favor before we go any further. Hit that subscribe button and stay with me all the way to the end, because this story turns in ways you will not see coming. And drop the name of the city you're watching from down in the comments so I can see just how far this story has traveled tonight. Now let me take you into that room. The laughter didn't stop right away. That was the thing Jack Harmon would remember later when he was old enough and humbled enough to be honest with himself. It didn't stop. It rolled around the room like a wave that fed on itself, one man laughing because another man was laughing, and the whole thing built until it filled every corner of that concrete room, buried 3 levels below a forward operating base. Most people in the world would never know existed. Commander Jack Harmon had earned the right to laugh, or at least that was how he saw it. 19 years, 4 tours that still lived behind his eyes when he tried to sleep. He had carried men out on his back who never carried anything again. He had a reputation, and the reputation was simple. Harmon does not lose people. Not on his watch. Not ever. He wore that like armor, and armor makes a man feel like he already knows everything worth knowing. So when the door opened and a woman he had never seen walked in, wearing a plain dark jacket and carrying nothing but a slim tablet under one arm, his brain did the math the way it always did. Not an operator, not a shooter, not one of his. Behind a desk somewhere probably, lost probably, a wrong turn in a building full of wrong turns. Lost sweetheart. The words were out before he had thought about them, and that was the truth of it. He hadn't thought at all. He had reacted the way a man reacts when he is certain, and certainty is a comfortable place to stand right up until the floor gives way. The woman did not blush. She did not stammer. She did not do any of the things Harmon expected a woman in a room full of hard men to do. She stopped just inside the doorway, let the laughter wash over her, and waited. She waited the way a person waits for rain to pass, patiently, like she had all the time in the world, and none of it belonged to him. "I'm exactly where I was ordered to be, Commander," she said. Her voice was steady, not loud. She did not raise it to match the noise of the room. She let it sit under the noise, and somehow that made it carry further than a shout ever could. "Is that right?" Harmon said, and a couple of his men chuckled again, sensing sport. "And where's that exactly? Because this is a mission brief, classified, operators only. So unless somebody upstairs is playing a joke on me, you're about 6 clearances short of that chair." "Dr. Claire Morgan," she said, "Special Operations Command. I was assigned to your operation directly. I imagine the paperwork is sitting in your inbox, Commander, if you'd care to check." "Doctor." Harmon leaned back and folded his arms. "Doctor of what feelings?" The room laughed again, but it was a thinner laugh this time. A few of the men were watching her now instead of watching him, and the ones who were watching her had stopped smiling. They had seen a lot of people come and go, and there was something in the way this woman did not flinch that made the sharper ones sit up a little. "Cybersecurity," Claire said, "and battlefield intelligence integration. I read signals, I read systems, and right now I'm reading a room full of men who've decided what I am before I've said 10 words. She said it without heat. She said it like she was reading it off a page. "That's fine. I've had that read wrong before. It usually works out for me." Master Chief Danny Rourke sat off to Harmon's right, and Rourke was the kind of man who had learned the hard way that certainty gets people killed. He didn't say anything, but he uncrossed his arms and he leaned forward an inch, and he looked at Claire Morgan the way a hunter looks at a track in the mud he can't quite name yet. "All right, Dr. Morgan." Harmon spread his hands. He was being generous now, and he wanted the room to see him being generous. "Since somebody sent you all the way down here, why don't you have a seat in the back? Quiet spot, and you let the grown folks work. We've got 6 hostages, we've got a window that closes in 11 hours, and we do not have time to babysit." "I don't need babysitting," Claire said, "and neither, I suspect, do the 6 hostages, which is why I'd like to see your intelligence package before you brief it." That changed the temperature in the room. Harmon felt it change. Asking to see the intel package was not the request of a lost woman looking for the filing office. It was the request of somebody who intended to work. "The package is fine," Harmon said, and there was an edge under the words now. "I'm sure you believe that." "I know that." "Then it should take you 30 seconds to let me confirm it, and we can all go on with our afternoon." Rourke made a small sound in his throat. It wasn't a laugh, it was almost a cough, the kind a man makes when he sees a fight coming, and he isn't sure yet which side he'll be standing on. Harmon looked at his master chief. Rourke gave him nothing. Just that flat, patient look Rourke gave him when Rourke thought he was about to do something dumb and wanted to watch him do it. "Fine," Harmon said. He gestured at the empty chair at the far end of the long table, as far from him as the room allowed. "Sit. Look. Don't touch anything and don't slow us down. We move in 11 hours whether you're comfortable or not." "I don't need to be comfortable, Commander." Claire crossed the room. She did not hurry and she did not dawdle, and every man there watched her cross it. "I need to be right. So do you. We happen to want the same thing." She sat, she opened her tablet, and the briefing went on around her as if she were a piece of furniture, which was exactly how Jack Harmon intended it. He should have known better. Later, he would ask himself 100 times how a man with his experience could look at competence, sitting right in front of him, and see nothing but a jacket and a desk. But that afternoon he saw nothing, because he had already decided there was nothing to see. The brief was standard. Harmon ran it clean and fast the way he always did. 6 American contractors, taken 12 days earlier, held in a compound in a valley the maps didn't love. Satellite imagery showed the compound, showed the guard rotations, showed the approach routes. Enemy strength estimated at somewhere between 18 and 25 fighters. 2 approach corridors, 1 extraction point, a window of darkness that opened just after 2 in the morning and closed hard by first light. "North corridors are infill," Harmon said, tapping the wall display. "We stage here, we move down the ridgeline, we hit the compound from the northeast at 0230. Blocking element sets up here, covers the road so nobody reinforces from town. Extraction bird holds off station here until we call it. Simple. Clean. We've done harder than this in worse places." "Corridor looks tight," one of the younger operators said. A kid named Pratt, eager and sharp. "That ridgeline funnels us." "It funnels them too," Harmon said. "Nobody gets behind us if we own the high ground. That's why we take it first." Heads nodded around the table. It was a good plan. Harmon knew it was a good plan because he had built 100 like it and brought his people home from all of them. That was the trap of it, the thing he could not see from inside his own confidence. A good plan built on bad information is not a good plan. It is a beautifully drawn map of a cliff. Down at the end of the table, Claire Morgan had not said a word in 20 minutes. Her eyes moved across her tablet. Her fingers moved. And slowly, so slowly that at first nobody noticed, the calm on her face began to change into something else. It was Rourke who noticed first. Rourke noticed everything. He watched the doctor's jaw tighten. He watched her scroll back again, and then stop and go very still the way a person goes still when they hear a sound in their house at night that should not be there. "Something on your mind, doctor," Rourke said. He said it quietly, but the room was quiet enough that it carried, and Harmon stopped mid-sentence. Claire didn't look up. "How old is this satellite package?" "Current," Harmon said. "Refreshed this morning, straight from the feed." "That's what the timestamp says." Claire finally lifted her head, and there was something in her face now that made even Harmon pause. Not fear, concentration. The cold, narrow focus of a person who has just found the loose thread and knows that if they pull it, the whole thing might come apart in their hands. "The timestamp says this morning. The data underneath it doesn't agree with the timestamp." "Meaning what?" Harmon said, and his voice had lost some of its ease. "Meaning I want to check something before you send men down that ridgeline." The room shifted. Harmon felt every one of his people look at him to see how he would handle it, and pride made the decision before wisdom could get a word in. "Dr. Morgan." He said her name slow, the way you say a name to a child you have already run out of patience for. That imagery came through 3 separate verification layers before it ever hit my table. It's been analyzed by people who do this for a living. With respect, you've been in this room for 20 minutes. What exactly do you think you're seeing that a whole intelligence cell missed? "With respect, Commander," Claire said, and the respect in her voice was real, which somehow made it land harder. Those people analyzed the picture. I'm not looking at the picture. I'm looking at how the picture got here, and the way it got here is wrong. That's not an answer. It's the only answer I have until you let me finish. We don't have time for you to finish. We have time for you to sit there quietly like we agreed. We move in 11 hours. Then in 11 hours, you might be moving your men into an ambush. She said it flatly. She did not raise her voice. And the words landed in the room like a stone dropped into still water, the ripple going out and touching every man there. So I'd suggest you make time. Nobody laughed now. Nobody remembered laughing. The word ambush had a way of clearing a room of its humor. Harmon stood up. He wasn't a tall man, but he filled a room when he wanted to, and he wanted to now. Let me tell you how this works, Doctor. In this room, I make the calls, not because I have the fanciest title, because when it goes wrong, I'm the one who writes the letters home. I've written those letters. You know how they start, dear family? Your son died a hero. I have written those words with my own hand, and I am telling you I will not have some analyst who's never smelled cordite walk in here at the last hour and blow up an operation that 6 lives are hanging on a hunch. It was a good speech. Some of his men nodded. It was the kind of speech that ends arguments. It did not end this one. Claire set her tablet down on the table flat so the men nearest her could see the screen. It isn't a hunch, Commander, and I would never ever gamble those 6 lives on a feeling. That's exactly what I'm trying to stop you from doing. She turned the tablet so it faced him. You want to know what I'm seeing? All right, I'll show you. But once I show you, you don't get to and see it. And you don't get to pretend a whole intelligence cell caught it because they didn't, and the reason they didn't is the entire point. The room went dead silent. Harmon looked at the tablet. He didn't want to. Every part of his pride told him to order her out, to reassert control, to move his men on schedule, and prove her wrong the hard way. But underneath the pride, older and quieter, was the instinct that had kept him alive for 19 years. And that instinct was standing up now and screaming at him to look at the screen. He looked. He didn't understand what he was seeing. That was the humbling part. It was numbers and lines and 2 overlaid images that meant nothing to him. But Claire started to talk, and as she talked, the meaning came clear, and the clearer it got, the colder Jack Harmon felt. This is the imagery in your package, she said, pointing. And this is the same compound, same coordinates from a raw feed I pulled independently on my way here because I make a habit of never trusting a package I didn't touch myself. Look at the guard positions. Look at the vehicles. Look at this structure on the north side. They're different, Rourke said. He had come around the table without anyone noticing, and he was leaning over the screen now, and his voice had gone very flat and very careful. The guard positions are different. The northern approach is clear in yours. It's not clear in hers. It's not clear in reality, Claire said. In reality, there are fighting positions dug in along the north approach. The exact approach the commander just spent 20 minutes planning to walk his team down. In your package, those positions are gone. Erased. Somebody took your imagery and they moved the enemy off the ridge so that when you looked at your map, the safest road on it would be the deadliest. Silence. That could be a data error, Harmon said, but there was no fight left in the words. He was reaching for it. He knew he was reaching. Feeds glitch, layers get crossed. It happens. It happens, Claire agreed. It does happen. And the first thing I did was assume that's what this was because I would rather be embarrassed in front of a room full of men who think I'm a secretary than tell you something this ugly and be wrong. She looked up at him and there was no triumph in her face. No, I told you so. There was something much worse. There was pity and there was dread. It's not a glitch, Commander. A glitch is random. It scrambles things. This isn't scrambled. This is edited. Someone went in with a very steady hand and changed exactly the things that would kill your team and nothing else. A glitch doesn't do that. A glitch doesn't have a plan. Jack Harmon had been in firefights. He had been blown off his feet. He had held pressure on a wound that would not stop bleeding while a 19-year-old kid asked him if he was going to be okay. And he had learned in all of it a very specific feeling. The feeling of the ground disappearing under a certainty he had built his life on. He felt it now standing in a briefing room 3 levels underground, looking at a screen a woman he had called sweetheart was holding up for him to see. Rourke, he said, his voice came out rougher than he meant it to. Sir. Pull the raw feed, independent line. Don't route it through the package. I want eyes on that north approach, and I want it in the next 10 minutes. On it. Rourke was already moving. Harmon looked down at Claire Morgan, and for the first time since she had walked through his door, he saw her. Not the jacket, not the tablet, not the desk he had invented for her in his head. He saw a person who had walked into a room where every single man had decided she was nothing, and who had sat there quietly and worked and found the one thing that would have gotten his people killed, and who had chosen to endure his contempt rather than let his pride march them off a cliff. You could have let me do it, he said. The words came hard. You could have sat there, let me run my op, let it go bad and been proven right in front of everyone. Some people would have. Some people would have, Claire said. I'm not some people, Commander. I don't need to win an argument. I need your men to come home. Those aren't the same thing. She closed the tablet halfway. You called me sweetheart. You'll apologize for that eventually, and I'll accept it, and neither of us will care by then. Because right now, there is something much bigger in this room than my feelings or your pride, and it's this. Somebody wanted your team dead. Somebody who could reach into a classified intelligence package and rewrite it with surgical precision. And that somebody is not on the other side of that valley. What are you saying? He knew what she was saying. He wanted to hear her say it anyway. He needed to hear it out loud because as long as it was only in his own head, he could still pretend. Claire Morgan looked around the room, at the operators who had laughed at her 20 minutes ago and were not laughing now, at the concrete walls of a facility that only a handful of trusted, cleared people could ever enter, at the display on the wall still glowing with a plan built on a lie. I'm saying whoever did this had our security architecture, she said quietly. Our mission schedule, our clearances, our procedures. You don't get access like that from the outside. Not this clean, not this precise. She let it sit for one long second. I'm saying the enemy isn't in the valley, Commander. The enemy is in this building. And there is a very real chance the enemy is a person you trust. Rourke's voice came over the room's speaker before anyone could answer tight and low from the next room. Commander, raw feeds up. You need to see this. The north approach isn't clear. A pause. It's the most heavily defended piece of ground in the whole valley. If we'd walked that ridge tonight, we'd have walked into 30 guns pointed down our throats. Nobody in the room moved. Jack Harmon stood very still, and he looked at the woman he had called sweetheart, and he understood with the whole weight of 19 years landing on him at once that he had spent his career learning to read a battlefield, and he had failed to read the most important thing that had ever walked through his door. How did you know, he said. It came out almost like a whisper, a man his size, a man with his history almost whispering in his own briefing room. How did you know to look? Everybody else took the package. 3 verification layers took the package. How did you in 20 minutes know to pull the raw feed? Claire Morgan was quiet for a moment. When she answered, there was no boasting in it. There was just the plain truth of a person who had learned something the hard way and carried the lesson ever since. Because I've spent my whole career watching people trust the picture instead of the frame, she said. Everyone looks at what the data says. Almost nobody looks at how the data got to them or who touched it on the way. And the people who want to hurt you, Commander, they know that. They know you'll trust a clean package with the right timestamp and the right stamps and the right chain of custody. So they don't attack the picture. They can't. Too many eyes on the picture. They attack the frame around it. They change the road, not the map. And by the time you find out, your people are already in the ground. She met his eyes. I look at the frame. It's not brilliance. It's just the one place nobody else bothers to check. Harmon lowered himself slowly back into his chair. The chair felt different now. The whole room felt different. 20 minutes ago, it had been his room full of his men running his plan. Now it was a room where someone he had never met had just saved every life in it, and where an invisible enemy he could not see and did not know was standing somewhere in a building full of people he had trusted with his life. Everybody stays, he said. His voice had changed. The swagger was gone, and something harder and quieter had come in behind it. Nobody leaves this room. Nobody makes a call. Nobody touches a device that isn't in front of me. He looked down the table. Dr. Morgan. Commander. That chair in the back, the one I sent you to. He pushed his own chair away from the head of the table, and it was the hardest and best thing he had done in a long time. Come sit up here, next to me, on me. Because from this minute, I don't move a man, I don't send a message, I don't make a decision on this operation until it goes through you first. For the first time, something almost like a smile touched the corner of Claire Morgan's mouth. Not a smile of victory, a smile of a person who had been underestimated so many times that being finally genuinely seen felt strange enough to be worth marking. "That's a start, Commander," she said, and she gathered her tablet and walked the length of the table past the men who had laughed at her, and she sat down at his right hand. "That's a good start. Now let's talk about who in this building wanted your team to die tonight, because they're going to find out very soon that their picture didn't work. And when they find out, they are not going to sit still." Harmon looked at her, then he looked at his men. Every one of them silent, every one of them awake now in a way they had not been an hour ago. Every one of them realizing how close they had come and how little they had understood about the woman in the plain dark jacket. "Rourke," Harmon said, "get in here, lock the door behind you." "Copy." The door opened. Rourke came in, and as the heavy door swung shut and the lock clicked home, sealing the room and everyone in it away from the building above, Jack Harmon understood that the mission he thought he had been planning was gone. It had never really existed. It had been a trap dressed up as an operation, and the only reason he was still alive to see it was a woman he had tried to send to the filing office. The hostages were still in that valley. The window was still closing. And somewhere above them, walking these same halls, drinking coffee, in the same mess, wearing the same uniform, was a person who had tried to murder his entire team with the stroke of a key, and who was at this very moment waiting to hear that it had worked. Claire opened her tablet. The glow lit her face, and she began quietly and methodically to hunt. "First thing we do," she said, "is we let them keep believing it worked. We don't fix the package. Not yet. We don't send a single signal that we caught it. Because the moment they know, we know they run, or worse, they change the game. Right now, we have one advantage, Commander, and it is the only advantage we have. They think you're already dead. Let's use it." Jack Harmon, 19 years and 4 tours behind him, a man who did not lose people, leaned in toward the woman he had called sweetheart, and for the first time in his career, listened to every single word. Outside the sealed door, the building went on with its evening. Boots in the hallway, voices in the mess, the ordinary sounds of an ordinary night on a base at war. And somewhere in all that ordinary sound, a traitor waited for good news, with no idea at all that the quiet woman they had never bothered to notice had just turned the whole board around and was coming for them now. The lock had barely clicked home before Claire Morgan set 3 rules on the table, and the way she said them told every man in that room she had done this before. Rule 1, nobody outside these walls learns we caught it. Rule 2, we don't fix the package, not one pixel. Rule 3, from this second, we assume every screen, every phone, every keyboard in this building is being watched by the person who tried to kill you. Break any of those 3 and we lose our only advantage. She looked up. Questions? "Yeah, I've got one." It was Pratt, the young operator, and his voice cracked a little on it. "If we don't fix the imagery and we still go tonight, aren't we just walking into the ambush anyway?" "We're not going tonight," Claire didn't even blink. "The mission you briefed is dead. It died the moment somebody rewrote your map. What we do tonight is something else." Harmon leaned forward. "The hostages don't have something else. They have a window. It opens at 02:30 and it closes at first light. You want me to throw that window away on a hunch about—" "It's not a hunch anymore, Commander." Rourke's voice came flat from the doorway, and he held up his own tablet with the raw feed still glowing on it. "I pulled it 3 ways, 3 separate lines. The north approach is a kill box, 30 guns, maybe more, dug in and waiting. If we'd stepped off tonight the way you briefed it, we'd have lost the whole assault element in the first 90 seconds. He lowered the tablet. "She's not guessing, sir. She's right." That landed on Harmon like a body blow. Not because he doubted Rourke, he trusted Rourke with his life, and had more than once, but because hearing it from his Master Chief made it real in a way that arguing with a stranger never could. Rourke didn't say things he wasn't sure of. Rourke had just said it. "All right," Harmon dragged a hand down his face. "All right, then somebody tell me what we're actually looking at. Because I've been doing this 19 years, and I have never once had my own intelligence turned into a weapon against me from inside my own house." "That's exactly what you're looking at," Claire said. "And I want you to understand how rare it is because it's going to tell us who did it." She pulled her chair in close to the table. "To do what they They needed three things at once. They needed access to the classified package before it hit your table. They needed to know your operational timeline down to the hour so they'd know which imagery to poison. And they needed the technical skill to edit an intelligence feed cleanly enough to survive three verification layers. Commander, how many people in this building have all three of those things? The room went quiet. Harmon thought about it, and the more he thought, the smaller the number got, and the smaller it got, the sicker he felt. A handful, he said finally, maybe six, maybe less. Then in a handful of people, Claire said, is the person who tried to bury your team. And I promise you right now tonight, they are sitting somewhere in this building waiting for a report that says the operation launched. When that report doesn't come, when they realize you didn't step off into their kill box, they are going to get very nervous. And nervous people make mistakes. That's what we're going to hunt. Not the person, the mistake. 19 minutes had passed since the door locked. Harmon would remember that later because Claire kept track of the time out loud the entire night, the way a surgeon counts, and it drove some of the men crazy, and it kept all of them alive. So what's step one? Rourke asked. Step one, we build a fake. Claire was already typing. We generate an internal status message. Routine. Boring. It says the assault element launched on schedule and is executing. We push it up the normal channel to the normal distribution list, and then we watch what that message does. Watch it do what? Pratt asked. Watch who reads it. She glanced up, and for the first time there was something almost like a smile at the edge of her mouth, cold and precise. The person who poisoned your map is desperate to know if it worked. When our fake "we launched" message hits the network, they will be the first one to open it, and they will open it faster than anybody, because they've been staring at their screen for hours waiting to hear that you're dead. The system logs every read, every timestamp. I can't see faces, but I can see who couldn't wait. Harmon stared at her. You're going to catch a traitor by watching how fast they open an email. I'm going to catch a traitor, Claire said, by understanding that the hardest thing in the world for a guilty person to do is act normal. Give me 20 minutes. 23 minutes later, she had it, and the thing she found was not what she expected, and that was the first time that night that Claire Morgan's own confidence flickered. That's wrong, she murmured, half to herself, and Harmon caught it instantly. What's wrong? The read logs. She turned the tablet. Look, we pushed the fake status message 11 minutes ago. It went to 19 people on the distribution list. 18 of them opened it within a normal spread. Some fast, some slow. One guy hasn't opened it at all, probably asleep. Her finger stopped. But one account opened it 4 seconds after it hit the server. 4 seconds. Nobody reads an email in 4 seconds unless they were already watching that inbox with their hand on the mouse. Then that's our guy, Harmon said, and he half rose out of his chair, the old fire coming up in him. Give me the name. I'll go get him myself right now. Sit down, Commander. She didn't look at him. Sit down and listen, because this is exactly the moment your instincts are going to get somebody killed. That stopped him. Not the words, the calm behind them. He sat. The account that opened it in 4 seconds, Claire said slowly, belongs to a Lieutenant Commander Alan Reyes, intelligence liaison, sits 2 floors up. She looked at Harmon. Do you know him? Harmon's face changed. Reyes, yeah, I know Reyes. He stopped. Something moved behind his eyes. He's been read into every operation I've run for the last 14 months. He builds half our intel packages. He's got the access, he's got the timeline, he's got the skill. His jaw tightened. Son of a... Don't! Claire's voice was sharp. Don't do that yet, because here's what's bothering me. Reyes is too obvious. He has all 3 things you need: access, timeline, skill, which is exactly why he's the first name you'd land on. And a man smart enough to edit an intelligence feed cleanly enough to beat 3 verification layers is smart enough to know he'd be the first name you'd land on. So why would he open the message in 4 seconds? Why would he leave a fingerprint that big? It's sloppy, and nothing else about this was sloppy. The room sat with that. It was Rourke who said the thing they were all thinking. Unless he wanted us to find it. Unless he wanted us to find it, Claire agreed quietly. Unless Reyes is the door somebody's holding open for us to walk through. A name to burn, a body to hand us so we stop looking. She set the tablet down. Commander, if we grab Reyes right now, one of 2 things is true. Either he's the traitor and we've won, or he's bait. And the second we arrest him, the real one knows we're hunting, and they vanish into the walls and we never find them. And they do this again on the next operation and the next one, and maybe next time nobody's in the room to catch it. She let that sit. I've seen it before. I've seen good people hang the obvious man and sleep fine while the actual enemy shakes their hand at the funeral. Harmon felt the ground shift under him again the way it had shifted an hour ago. He had walked into that room the smartest man in it, or so he'd believed, and every 10 minutes since the woman he'd tried to send to the mop closet had shown him another floor beneath the floor he was standing on. So what do we do? He hated how much he needed the answer. We watch Reyes. We don't touch him. We let him keep thinking he's safe, or let him keep thinking he's fooling us, whichever he is. And while everybody's eyes are on Reyes, she pulled up a second window. I go looking at the one thing a smart trader can never fully erase: the plumbing. Somebody had to physically move the poisoned package into your feed. That leaves a trail underneath the trail. Reyes's fingerprints are on the surface. I want to see whose fingerprints are on the pipe. It was 38 minutes past the hour when she went quiet, and she stayed quiet for a long time, and the quiet was worse than any shouting could have been. The men didn't talk. They watched her work, and they watched Harmon watch her, and the whole room seemed to lean toward the small glow of that tablet, like men around the last fire on a cold night. Dr. Pratt said, finally unable to stand it, "What are you seeing?" "I'm seeing that somebody was very, very careful," Claire said without looking up. "And careful is a fingerprint too." Her fingers stopped. "There it is." "There what is?" Harmon said. "The package that reached your table came through the standard pipeline. But 11 minutes before it hit your feed, there was an access event on the raw storage server. Somebody with an administrator credential pulled the original imagery, held it for 6 minutes, and pushed a modified version back in its place. 6 minutes. That's how long it took them to move the enemy off your ridgeline and hand you a clean road into a grave." She looked up. 6 minutes of work to kill 6 hostages and every SEAL you'd have sent. "Whose credential?" Harmon said. "That's the thing." Claire's face was doing something complicated. "The credential belongs to Reyes." Rourke swore under his breath. "So it is him." "No?" Claire held up a hand. "No, listen. The credential belongs to Reyes, but the access came from a workstation that isn't Reyes's. Reyes works 2 floors up. This access came from a terminal in the secure comms room on the same level as this briefing room. Down here, 50 feet from where we're sitting." She looked around at them slowly. "Somebody used Reyes's login on a machine Reyes doesn't use, on the level Reyes doesn't work on. They borrowed his identity, and they did it right down the hall from you." The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Every man there had walked past that comms room 100 times. Some of them had been inside it that very day. "Somebody local," Harmon said, and his voice had gone very low. "Somebody with us, somebody who's been in and out of this level all day." "Somebody who knew Reyes's credentials," Claire said, "which is a very short list because those credentials are compartmented, and knowing them means either you're Reyes or you're close enough to Reyes to have watched him type, or you're senior enough to have pulled them from the system. Reyes didn't do it from his own desk, 2 floors up in the 4 seconds it would have taken. Somebody down here wore Reyes like a coat." It was 46 minutes past the hour, and that was the moment Master Chief Danny Rourke went very still. Harmon caught it. He'd known Rourke 15 years, and he'd learned to read the man's silences better than most people read speech. "Danny, what?" Rourke didn't answer right away. When he did, his voice had something in it Harmon had almost never heard. Doubt. "The comms room. On this level. Earlier today." He swallowed. "Who was down here today, running comms checks before the brief?" Nobody answered. Then Pratt, quietly, like the words tasted bad, said the name. "Chief Warrant Officer Delgado. He was in the comms room most of the afternoon. Said he was validating the uplinks for the op." Silence. "Delgado's been with us 3 years, Rourke said. 3 years. I've bled with that man. He pulled me out from under a wall, and he stopped himself. No way, not Delgado." "I'm not saying it's Delgado," Claire said carefully. "I'm saying somebody was in that room, and I'm saying we now know when the poison went in, and I'm saying the 2 things are close enough together that we can't ignore it. That's all I'm saying. This is exactly the trap, Master Chief. The names start coming, and every one of them is somebody you trust, and the temptation is to grab the first one. Your gut hates the least, or the first one it hates the most, and both of those are how you get the wrong man. She looked at Harmon. We stay on the data. The data doesn't have friends. The data doesn't owe anybody 3 years. Harmon nodded slowly, but he was watching Rourke, and Rourke was somewhere far away. Rourke, Harmon said, you with me? I'm with you. Rourke came back, but something in him had gone tight, and Harmon filed it the way he filed everything that mattered. 52 minutes past the hour and the room's secure phone lit up. Everybody froze. Claire's head came up. Nobody answer that. It's the command line, Harmon said, reading the display. That's General Hayes' staff. If I don't pick up, they send someone down here to find out why, and then we've got people in this room who aren't cleared for what we're doing. Then pick up, Claire said, and say nothing that isn't already on the schedule. As far as anyone above this level knows, the operation is proceeding normally. We launched. We're executing. Keep it boring. Keep it dead ordinary. The traitor is listening to everything. Give them ordinary. Harmon picked up. His voice when it came was so calm and so bored that even Claire, who'd asked for exactly that, was impressed. Harmon, yes, sir. Assault elements executing holding to timeline. No, sir, no complications. I'll have a full readout when their feet dry. Copy, out. He hung up. His hand, Claire noticed, was steady. Whatever else Jack Harmon was, he was a man who could lie to a general to save his people. And that told her something about him. She felt away too. Good, she said. That was Hayes' aide, Harmon said. Colonel Briggs. He rubbed his jaw. Briggs has been read into this op from the start. Full access. Full timeline. Claire went very still. What? Harmon said. Nothing. Keep going. Everybody who's been read in is a suspect until they're not. Briggs, Reyes, whoever was in the comms room. I want all of them on the board and none of them off it. But her eyes had gone somewhere for half a second, and Harmon saw it, and he didn't like it. It was 59 minutes past the hour when the second twist came, and it came from a direction none of them were watching. Claire had been running the access logs backward patiently, hour by hour, day by day, and now she stopped and read the same 3 lines 4 times. This isn't the first time, she said. Harmon leaned in. The first time what? The first time somebody touched a package before an operation. Her voice had changed. The precision was still there, but underneath it now was something colder. I went back 90 days. There are 3 other access events. Same signature, same 6-minute window, same borrowed administrator credential. She looked up and her face was pale in the glow of the screen. Commander, when's the last time you lost people? The question hit the room like a slap. Harmon didn't answer at first. He didn't have to. Every man there knew the answer because every man there had been at the ramp ceremony. 61 days ago, Rourke said when Harmon couldn't, the Valley Op, we lost 3. His voice was rough. Torres, Kim, and the kid Whitfield. 61 days ago, Claire repeated softly, there is an access event. Same signature. Same 6-minute window. 11 minutes before your mission package was finalized. She let it land. Commander, I don't think tonight was the first attempt. I think tonight was the 4th. I think 3 of the times it worked a little, and once it worked all the way, and I think the 3 men you buried 2 months ago didn't die because the enemy was good. I think they died because the enemy was here. Nobody breathed. Jack Harmon put both hands flat on the table because if he didn't, he thought they might start shaking, or worse, start swinging. Torres, Kim, Whitfield. He had written those letters. Dear family, your son died a hero. He had stood at 3 ramps with his hand over his heart. He had told 3 mothers it was quick, it was clean. There was nothing anyone could have done. And now a woman he'd known for 1 hour was telling him there was something someone could have done, and the something was not being betrayed by their own. Say it again, he said. His voice was not his own. Say it slow. I can't prove it yet, Claire said, and she said it gently because she could see what it was doing to him. I want to be honest with you because you deserve honest. The signature on the 61-day event matches tonight. That's real. That I can show you. But whether it changed the outcome of that mission, whether those 3 men would be alive, that I can't prove standing here. What I can tell you is that the same hand that tried to kill your whole team tonight was reaching into your operations 2 months ago on the exact night you lost 3 men. She held his eyes. You wanted the truth. That's as much of it as I have, and I won't dress it up prettier than it is. Harmon stood up. He turned away from the table. For a long moment he said nothing and the room let him have it because there is a kind of silence. Men give each other that is its own language. When he turned back, something in his face had gone to iron. Then we don't just catch them, he said. We catch them and we make it stick, and we make them answer for Torres and Kim and Whitfield. All three, he looked at Claire. Tell me what you need. I need time I don't have, and I need to not tip them off, and those two things are pulling against each other, Claire said. Every hour we wait to move, we're safer from spooking them, and every hour we wait, those 6 hostages are 1 hour closer to being executed, because the enemy in that valley is real too, Commander. That part of the map was never fake. There really are 6 Americans in a compound in that valley, and the window really does close at first light. She looked around the room. So here's where we are. We have a traitor in this building we can't yet name, and we have 6 hostages in a valley we can't yet reach, and we have 1 night to solve both. And if we rush the first, we lose the trail, and if we wait on the second, we lose the hostages. Anybody who tells you there's a clean answer to that is lying to you. Then give me the dirty answer, Harmon said. I've made peace with dirty answers before. Claire was quiet for a moment. Then, we run 2 hunts at once. Rourke and a small team build a real rescue plan off the poisoned intel using only raw feeds I verify with my own hands for a window tomorrow night instead of tonight. We buy the hostages 24 hours by making the enemy believe the launch is still happening on schedule so nobody in that valley panics and starts shooting prisoners. Meanwhile, you and I hunt the traitor tonight quietly, and we don't move on them until we can prove all 4 events, so that when we take them down, it's not your word against theirs. It's math. Math a court can't argue with. Math 3 grieving families can look at and know. She paused. It's not clean. It's the best I've got. Harmon looked at Rourke. Can you build a real plan by tomorrow night off raw intel? If she verifies the feeds, I can build anything, Rourke said. But I want to say something. He looked at Claire, and there was a new thing in his eyes now. Something that had started as suspicion an hour ago and had turned somewhere along the way into something closer to respect, though it clearly cost him. An hour ago, I watched every man in this room laugh at you, ma'am. Myself included, at least on the inside, phone. And in 1 hour, you found a poisoned map, a borrowed identity, a workstation 50 feet from where we're sitting, and maybe the reason we buried 3 brothers 2 months ago. He shook his head slowly. I don't know who taught you to look at the frame instead of the picture, but whoever it was, they saved lives tonight they'll never know about. Claire held his gaze. When she answered, it was quieter than anything she'd said all night. My brother taught me, she said. He was an operator, like you. He died walking down a road that looked safe on a map. She looked back down at her tablet. Turned out the map was wrong. Nobody ever figured out why or if somebody made it wrong. I couldn't save him. So I spend my life making sure the next map is real. She swallowed once. That's all this is, Master Chief. That's the whole story. I'm not brave like you are. I just refuse to trust the picture, because I trusted a picture once, and it took the only family I had. The room was very quiet. It was 1 hour and 9 minutes past, the moment the door had locked, and in that quiet, Jack Harmon understood something that reorganized everything he thought he knew about courage. He had spent 19 years measuring it by who ran toward the guns. He had never once thought to measure it by who sat in a quiet room alone, night after night, checking the frame. Nobody else would check, carrying a grief nobody else could see, so that men she would never meet could walk down roads that were actually safe. Dr. Morgan, he said, Commander, when this is over, I'm going to apologize to you the right way. Not tonight. Tonight you're busy. But when it's over. He paused. For all of it. The sweetheart, the tablet, the mop closet, all of it. I was a fool, and you knew I was a fool, and you saved my men anyway. That's a debt I don't know how to pay. You can pay it right now, Claire said, and she looked up at him. Yas, stop apologizing and start hunting. We've got 2 lives problems, and 1 night, and the clock is the only thing in this room that isn't on our side. They moved. It was 1 hour and 22 minutes past the hour when the third twist came, and this one changed the shape of the whole night. Claire had been trying to place the borrowed administrator credential Reyes login used down in the comms room. And she found buried in a maintenance log, almost nobody ever looked at a detail that made her hands go cold on the keys. The comms room terminal, she said slowly, the one the poison came from. It wasn't just accessed today. It was rebuilt today. Somebody wiped it and re-imaged it 4 hours ago. Fresh install, clean slate. She looked up. Somebody was covering their tracks, erasing whatever local evidence sat on that machine so that if we ever came looking like we're doing right now, there'd be nothing on it. Then we're too late, Harmon said. It's gone. No. A slow, dangerous light came into Claire's eyes. No, listen, that's the mistake. That's the mistake I've been waiting for all night. When you re-image a workstation on a secure network, you erase the machine, but you can't erase the network. The re-image itself is an event. It's logged upstream on a server the local user can't touch because that's the whole point of a secure network. The little guy at the terminal doesn't get to rewrite the big records. She was typing fast now. So somebody wiped that machine 4 hours ago to hide their trail. And in doing it, they created a brand new trail, a re-image request. And a re-image request, commander has to be authorized by name, by credential, by a human being who signed off on it. She stopped. Her whole body went still. Claire. Harmon had started using her first name somewhere in the last hour, and neither of them had noticed. What does it say? She didn't answer for 3 full seconds. Dr. Morgan, Rourke said sharper. Who signed the re-image? Claire looked up and her face was the face of someone who has found the answer and wishes she hadn't. The re-image was authorized 4 hours ago, she said, under the command authority of the man who has the highest access on this base, the man who could touch any package, any credential, any machine, and never be questioned. The man who called this briefing room 50 minutes ago pretending to be checking on a routine operation. She looked at Harmon. It was signed under the authority of General Jonathan Hayes's office, through his aide, Colonel Briggs. The room detonated in silence. Briggs, Harmon breathed. Briggs authorized the wipe. Briggs's credential authorized the wipe, Claire corrected. And even now, even holding this, she would not let herself run ahead of the data. The same way Reyes's credential poisoned the package. Do you see it? Do you see what's happening here? Every single fingerprint we find belongs to someone. Reyes, Briggs, and every one of them is a person with enormous access and an airtight reason to be near the system. That's not an accident, Commander. That's a signature. Somebody in this building isn't just a traitor. Somebody in this building is a ghost who wears other men's names, and they are very, very good. And they have been doing this for at least 61 days, and tonight for the first time they made one mistake. She held up the log. They wiped the machine in a hurry, and in the hurry they wore Briggs instead of Reyes. 2 different coats in one night. That's the tell. The real one is Ray running out of clean identities to hide behind. They're getting nervous. Her voice dropped. Which means we're close, and which means they know we're close. How would they know? Pratt said. We've been locked in here the whole... He stopped. Everybody stopped. Because there was one thing they had all forgotten in the heat of the hunt, and Claire had just remembered it, and Harmon watched the blood drain out of her face as she remembered it. The fake status message, she said. Her voice was barely a whisper. The one we pushed, the we launched we're executing message. She looked up. When Reyes's account opened it in 4 seconds, I thought I'd caught the traitor being impatient. But that's not what happened, is that the traitor isn't Reyes. The traitor is wearing Reyes. So when I pushed a fake message saying the operation launched, you told the traitor the operation launched. Harmon finished, and the horror of it climbed up his spine 1 vertebra at a time. You told them it worked. You told them we walked into the kill box. And a traitor who thinks the kill box worked, Claire said, has exactly 1 job left tonight. She was already moving, already pulling up the valley feed, already dreading what she'd see. They report success to the enemy in the valley. They tell them the Americans took the bait, the assault is coming down the poisoned road, get ready to spring the trap. Her hands flew, which means right now tonight the enemy in that valley believes a SEAL team is about to walk into their guns. And when no team shows up, she found the feed. She looked at it, and whatever was on it made her go absolutely silent in a way she had not been silent all night. Claire, Harmon was around the table now at her shoulder. What is it? What are you looking at? The compound, she said. Her voice had no color in it at all. The one holding the hostages. 20 minutes ago, there was activity consistent with an ambush being set. Fighters moving to the north approach, getting ready to spring the trap we were supposed to walk into. She swallowed. But now, she zoomed. Now they're not setting an ambush anymore, Commander. The team never came. The trap never sprang. And they've figured out something went wrong. Her finger touched the screen. They're moving the hostages, all 6, out of the holding building into vehicles. Moving them where, Rourke said, coming fast. I don't know, but I know why. Claire looked up, and for the first time that whole long night, the fear in her was naked and human and without any armor at all. When an ambush fails and the enemy realizes their inside man's cover might be blown, they do one of 2 things with hostages. They relocate them somewhere we'll never find them. She stopped. Or, Harmon said, he already knew. He could see it in her face, but he made himself say it. Or what, Claire? Or they decide the hostages aren't worth the risk anymore, she said quietly, and they don't relocate them at all. The vehicles on the screen were loading. The window that was supposed to open at 02:30, the window they had planned to buy, 24 more hours of that window was closing right now tonight, in real time on a screen in a locked room, while a traitor somewhere in the building above them waited to hear that a slaughter had gone according to plan. And Jack Harmon, 19 years and 4 tours, behind him, the man who did not lose people, looked at the 6 lives loading into trucks half a world away, and looked at the woman beside him, who had seen all of it coming and had still been one message too slow to stop it, and understood that the hunt he thought he'd been running had just become something else entirely. Rourke, Harmon said, and his voice was steel and it was quiet and it filled the room. Get me every operator on this base who can hold a rifle. Real plan or no plan, poisoned intel or not. Those trucks do not leave that valley with our people in them. Commander, Claire started. I hear you, he said, not looking away from the screen. I hear you on the trader. I hear you on the trail. But those are 6 Americans getting loaded into trucks right now, and I am not going to sit in a locked room and watch it happen because it's tactically wiser to wait. He finally looked at her. You taught me tonight that courage is sitting in a quiet room making impossible calls while nobody knows your name. You were right, but there's another kind too, and this one's mine. He straightened. You find me a way into that valley in the next 90 minutes. Anyway, I don't care how ugly, and I'll bring them home or I won't come back. Can you do that? Claire Morgan looked at him for a long moment, at the man who had called her sweetheart, at the man who was now without hesitation offering to walk into a valley full of guns off broken intelligence to save 6 people he'd never met. Then she turned back to her screen and her hands settled and the fear went out of her voice and the surgeon came back into it cold and clear and absolute. 90 minutes, she said. Get your men ready, Commander. I'll find you the road. And in a building above them, in a quiet office, a person wearing another man's name refreshed a screen and waited for the good news that was never going to come. 90 minutes, Claire said again, and this time it wasn't a promise to Harmon. It was a promise to herself. Give me the room. Give me quiet. And do not let anybody near me who isn't already in this space right now. Harmon turned to his men. You heard her. Rourke, spin up the alert force. Pratt, get me a comms link to that bird that's still holding off station. Everybody else gear check. We might be moving in an hour, and I want no man on this base finding out he forgot a magazine when the ramp's already down. He clapped his hands once. Move. The room came alive. Boots gear, low, fast voices. And in the middle of it, Claire Morgan went still as stone because she had learned a long time ago that when everyone else speeds up, the person who slows down is the one who sees the way through. It was 1 hour and 31 minutes past the moment the door had locked, and Claire was watching 6 trucks that hadn't moved yet. That was the first thing that saved them, and she almost missed it. They're loaded, she murmured. The hostages are in the vehicles. The engines are probably running, but they haven't moved. She leaned closer. Why haven't they moved? Does it matter? Pratt asked, wiring the comms link. Long as they're still there, we've got a shot. It matters because everything matters. Claire's eyes tracked across the feed. An enemy that just realized their ambush failed doesn't sit in a courtyard with loaded trucks. They run. Unless... She stopped. Unless they're waiting for something. Or someone. Waiting for what? Harmon said. Orders. Claire's voice dropped. Commander, think about it. The fighters in that valley are the muscle. They don't decide when to kill hostages. Somebody tells them, and the somebody who tells them is the same somebody who's been feeding them our operations for 61 days. She looked up. The traitor. The trucks haven't moved because the fighters are waiting to hear from their handler, and their handler is in this building upstairs right now trying to figure out why the ambush he set didn't produce a single American body. Harmon felt the whole shape of the night lock into place. So as long as the traitors confused, the hostages are alive, Claire finished. The second the traitor makes a decision, those trucks move, or worse. Which means the most important person in this entire operation right now isn't in the valley. It's a man in an office over our heads, and we have to control what he believes for the next 90 minutes or 6 people die. She was already typing. I've been trying to catch this man quietly. That's over. Now I have to steer him. Steer him how? Rourke said, coming back into the room with a duffel over his shoulder. By feeding him exactly the story that keeps those trucks parked. Claire's hands moved fast. Right now he's panicking because his ambush produced nothing. He doesn't know if his cover's blown or if the op just slipped a few hours. If he decides his cover's blown, he tells the valley to kill the hostages and vanish. If he believes the op just slipped, he tells them to hold. So I'm going to make him believe the op slipped. She looked up. I'm going to push a second internal message. This one says the assault element hit a weather hold at the staging point and pushed the timeline 4 hours. Routine, boring. It tells him nothing's wrong, you weren't caught. The Americans are just late. Hold the trap. Wait. And that keeps the trucks parked, Harmon said. For 4 hours. Maybe. If he buys it. Claire's jaw tightened. It's a lie built on top of a lie built on top of a lie, and every layer is one more thing that can crack. But it buys us the only thing we don't have. Time. Do it, Harmon said. She did it. And then she did the hardest thing of the night, which was wait. It was 1 hour and 37 minutes past the hour when the trucks turned their engines off. Rourke saw it first this time. The trucks, the exhaust. It stopped. He leaned in. They shut them down. He bought it. Claire let out a breath she'd been holding so long it hurt. He told them to hold. The hostages just got 4 more hours. She closed her eyes for 1 second, just one, and then opened them. That's the good news. What's the bad news? Harmon said. The bad news is I just taught the smartest enemy I've ever hunted that his messages are being answered by someone who knows exactly what he needs to hear. She looked up grimly. I fed him the perfect lie. Too perfect. If he's as good as I think he is sometime in the next hour, he's going to start wondering why the universe is being so convenient. And when a paranoid man starts wondering that he stops trusting his messages, all of them, including the real ones. She held Harmon's eyes. I bought us 4 hours, but I may have started a clock I can't see. The room absorbed that. Nobody liked it, but nobody had a better idea, and that was the whole night in one sentence. Then we don't waste the 4 hours, Harmon said. Rourke, where's my rescue plan? Building it. Rourke spread a raw feed across the table one Claire had verified with her own hands 20 minutes earlier. If we can't use the north approach, and we can't, we go in from the south. It's longer. It's harder. It's a 2-hour movement instead of 40 minutes, and it puts us in the valley with a lot less darkness to spend. But it's real, and real beats fast. He looked at Harmon. It's ugly, Commander. I won't pretend it isn't. I made peace with ugly an hour ago, Harmon said. Show me. And that was when Claire, still half watching the traitor's channels out of the corner of her eye, saw the fourth twist come, and this one came from inside the room. Her comms alert flickered. Somebody on the base had just queried the operations status file. Not one of the trusted names, a new one, a name she hadn't seen all night. Commander. Her voice was quiet and urgent. Somebody just accessed the operation file. Somebody who wasn't on the distribution list. Somebody who shouldn't have known this operation existed at that access level. Harmon came around fast. Who? Claire pulled the name, and when she read it, she felt the floor tilt. Master Chief, she said slowly, not looking at Rourke. What's your service number? The room went quiet in a way it hadn't been all night, because everyone heard the shape of the question before they understood it. Rourke straightened. Why? Because the account that just accessed the operation file 30 seconds ago is registered to your credential, Claire said, and she made herself look at him. From a terminal in the equipment bay, 90 seconds ago, while you were standing right here in front of me, spreading a map on this table. The silence was total. Rourke's face didn't move, but something behind it did. I've been in this room for the last hour and a half. Every man here saw me. I know, Claire said. That's exactly the point. Wait, Pratt looked between them. Wait, so somebody used the Master Chief's login while he was standing right here. So he's clean, Claire said. Master Chief Rourke is the only person in this building I can now prove didn't do it because he was in front of 8 witnesses when his own credential was used 50 feet away. She turned back to the screen and the cold light was back in her eyes. Do you see the pattern now? Do you see it? Reyes's login poisoned the package. Briggs's authority wiped the machine. And now Rourke's credential just accessed the op file. 3 men, 3 good men probably, and every single one of them has an ironclad reason they couldn't have done it if we'd only stop and check. Her voice sharpened. The traitor isn't hiding, Commander. The traitor is framing, one at a time. He's laying credentials around this operation like a man scattering coats on a battlefield, so that when the smoke clears and somebody comes looking for a body, there are 3 innocent men standing over the evidence and 1 ghost walking away clean. Then how do we catch a man who's never himself, Harmon said. Every fingerprint belongs to someone else. Because a man who wears other men's coats, Claire said slowly, has to take his own coat off to do it. And there's one thing he can never borrow. She turned back to the terminal. Location. He can steal a credential. He can fake a name. But when he sits down at a physical machine and logs in as somebody else, his body is still in a room on this base, and this base logs every door, every badge, every card reader, every hallway camera. She started typing faster than she had all night. He's been so busy borrowing identities that he forgot the one thing that's always his, where he actually is. 3 credentials were used from 3 different terminals in the last 2 hours. Reyes's, Briggs's, Rourke's, 3 different rooms, but there's only 1 traitor, which means 1 human being physically walked to all 3 of those rooms. She looked up. And I can trace a body through a building. I just have to find the person who was near all 3 terminals at all 3 times. Give me the badge logs and the door logs, and I will hand you a name that can't lie because it isn't a credential. It's a man's own feat. Harmon looked at her and something like awe moved across his face. You can do that? I can do that, Claire said. But it's going to take time I'm spending instead of spending it on your rescue plan. So here's the fork, Commander, and I'm giving it to you because it's yours to give, not mine. I can chase the traitor's feet, or I can verify Rourke's south approach for the rescue. I have the hands for one, not both, and both are lives. She met his eyes. What do you want me to save? The room held its breath. It was the kind of choice that defined men, and Harmon knew it. Both, he said. Commander, I can't. You verify the rescue, Hartman said. That's 6 lives in trucks with a clock on them. That comes first. The traitor's been in this building 61 days. He'll keep. 6 hostages might not. He turned to Pratt. Pratt, you sit with Dr. Morgan. She's going to teach you what to look for in the badge logs. And while she builds the rescue, you build the traitor's footpath. You won't be as good as her. You'll be good enough to keep the trail warm until she can finish it. He looked at Claire. That work? Claire looked at him for a second, and something in her expression shifted because that was exactly the right call made fast under pressure by a man who 2 hours ago she'd have bet couldn't find his way out of his own certainty. That works, she said. That works well, Commander. You're learning. I had a good teacher tonight, Harmon said. Move. It was 1 hour and 52 minutes past the hour, and now 2 hunts were running at once in the same locked room with the same shrinking clock. Claire worked the rescue. She verified Rourke's south approach, foot by foot, feed by feed, checking each piece of ground with her own eyes, refusing to trust a single frame she hadn't personally confirmed because she had learned in the hardest way a person can learn that a map you don't verify is a map that kills people you love. Beside her, Pratt hunched over the badge logs, following her whispered instructions, tracing a single unknown body through the corridors of a base full of people who thought this was an ordinary night. And Rourke stood a little apart from both of them, and Harmon watched his Master Chief, and Harmon saw that something was eating the man alive. Danny, Harmon said quietly, pulling him aside. Talk to me. Rourke was quiet for a moment. Somebody used my name, Jack. First names now, the way old friends go when the uniform falls away and it's just two men. Somebody in this building reached into me and used my name to touch that file. I've given 20 years. 20 years. And somebody down the hall is wearing me like a mask to help kill our people. His jaw worked. Delgado was in that comms room today. I keep coming back to Delgado. 3 years I've known him. He pulled me out from under a wall. And now I can't stop thinking maybe I owe my life to a man who's been selling us the whole time. He looked at Harmon and his eyes were wet, and Rourke was not a man who let his eyes get wet. How do you live with that? How do you ever trust anything again? You don't yet, Harmon said. You wait. Same thing she taught me. Anger finds enemies. Patience finds the truth. We don't know it's Delgado. We don't know it's anybody yet. And if we decide before we know, we become the thing, we're hunting a man who condemns another man off a map he didn't check. He gripped Rourke's shoulder. Hold. Just hold. She's going to hand us the truth. And when she does, it'll be the real name, not the one our gut wants. Rourke nodded slowly, but Harmon saw that the doubt had gotten into him deep, and doubt like that doesn't leave a man clean, and Harmon filed it the way he filed everything, because on a night like this, the cracks in your own people can matter as much as the enemy. It was 2 hours and 4 minutes past the hour when Pratt made a sound. Dr. Morgan, his voice shook. Dr. Morgan, I think I found something. I think I don't want to say it wrong. Can you look? Claire didn't stop verifying the rescue feed. Tell me first. Say it out loud. If you can say it and it still sounds true, then I'll look. Okay, Pratt swallowed. So you told me to find one body near all 3 terminals. Reyes's login came from the comms room on this level 1 hour ago. Briggs's authority wiped the machine 4 hours ago from the badge. Log says the server room 2 levels up. And Rourke's credential just hit the equipment bay other end of this level 20 minutes ago. He wiped his hand across his mouth. I traced badge swipes. I looked for one person who was near all 3. Comms room, server room, equipment bay. 3 rooms, 2 levels, 4 hours. And Claire's hand slowed on the keys. And there's only one badge that pinged near all 3, Pratt said. One, everybody else was only near 1 or 2. One person moved through all 3 rooms in the right windows. He looked up pale. But it doesn't make sense, ma'am, because the badge belongs to somebody who's not even supposed to be able to do any of this. It's not Reyes, it's not Briggs, it's not a computer person at all. Say the name Pratt. Claire had stopped typing entirely now. So had everyone else in the room. Say it plain. Pratt looked at the screen. Then he looked up and his eyes went straight to one man in the room, and everybody's eyes followed his, and the name he said landed in the center of the room like a live grenade. It's the General's aide's driver, Pratt said. A staff sergeant named Cole Wexler. He drives for Colonel Briggs. He's got a badge that gets him everywhere Briggs goes because he goes everywhere Briggs goes. Server room when Briggs authorized the wipe. Comms room this afternoon. Equipment base 20 minutes ago. He swallowed hard. Nobody watches the driver. Nobody ever watches the driver. He's furniture. He's the guy who waits by the car. Silence. And then Claire Morgan started to laugh softly without any humor in it at all. The laugh of a person who has just watched the last piece drop into a picture she'd been staring at for 2 hours. Of course, she said, of course it's the driver. Of course it's the one man in this building. Nobody would ever read into anything because he's not a shooter, and he's not an analyst, and he's not an officer. He's furniture. She looked up, and her eyes were bright and terrible. Do you understand what that means? A driver doesn't have his own high access, so how does furniture poison an intelligence package? He can't, not alone. She turned to Harmon. Commander, the driver's the feet. The driver's the man who walked to all 3 rooms. But the driver isn't the brain. Somebody's been handing furniture the keys to the kingdom. Somebody senior, somebody who could give a driver Reyes's login and Briggs's authority and even Rourke's credential and send that invisible man walking around the building doing the dirty work, while the real traitor never touches a keyboard at all. Her voice dropped to almost nothing. The driver's the hand. We still don't have the head. But we can grab the hand, Harmon said. We grab Wexler. We make him give us the head. We grab Wexler, Claire said slowly. And the head knows in the same minute and tells the valley to kill the hostages and vanishes. She shook her head. No, we don't grab the hand. We watch the hand, because the hand is going to have to talk to the head sometime in the next 4 hours. He has to. He's the courier. And when he does, she stopped. Because at that exact moment, it was 2 hours and 11 minutes past the hour, the secure phone on the wall lit up again. Everybody froze. That's the command line again, Harmon said, reading it. Hayes' office. Same as before, Claire said. Keep it boring. Give them ordinary. You've done it once, you can do it. No, Harmon said, staring at the display. Not the same as before. Before it was Briggs. This time the caller ID isn't Briggs' line. He looked up and something in his face had gone very carefully still. This time it's the general himself, personal line. Hayes is calling me direct. He's never called me direct in 3 years. Not once. The room went cold. Why would the general call you personally, Rourke said slowly, in the middle of the night, on his personal line tonight of all nights? Nobody answered. The phone kept ringing, and Claire Morgan, who had spent all night refusing to run ahead of the data, felt the data pull in a direction she did not want to go. Answer it, she said quietly. Answer it and say nothing that isn't already true. But Commander, she caught his arm before he reached the phone. Listen to how he talks. Listen to what he wants to know. A worried commander asked about his men. A worried general asked about the mission. Her eyes held his. If Hayes asks you whether the operation launched, if that's the first thing out of his mouth, I need you to keep your voice perfectly flat, and I need you to not react no matter what your gut does. Because there is exactly one person in this building senior enough to hand a driver the keys to Hayes and Briggs and you and Rourke and never be questioned by anyone. One man whose authority sits above every credential we found. One man who could call the valley himself and no one would ever ask why. She didn't say the name. She didn't have to. Answer the phone and do not let him hear that you know. Harmon looked at the ringing phone. Then he looked at Claire. And then slowly he picked it up and he made his voice into the most ordinary thing in the world. Harmon. The room could only hear his side, but they watched his face and they watched it change one small degree at a time, and it was the most frightening thing any of them saw all night. Yes, sir, Harmon said. A pause. Executing on timeline, sir. Assault elements on the ground. A longer pause, and Harmon's eyes came up and found Claire's across the room and held them. No complications to report, General. Pause. Yes, sir, I'll confirm the moment their feet dry. Pause. Understood. Thank you, sir. He hung up. His hand stayed on the phone for a moment. Then he turned around. Well, Rourke said. He asked one question, Harmon said. His voice was strange, hollow. One. He didn't ask if my men were okay. He didn't ask about casualties. He didn't ask about the hostages. He looked around the room slowly. He asked me to confirm that the assault element went down the north approach, on schedule, the exact road she found poisoned. He looked at Claire. The general of this base called me on his personal line at 2 a.m. to make sure my men walked down the one road built to kill them. The silence in that room was the silence of men who have just watched the ground they stood on turn out to be a lie. It's Hayes, Pratt whispered. It's the general, the whole time. We don't know that, Claire said, but her voice had lost some of its certainty for the first time all night, and everyone heard it. We know he asked. We know it's the wrong question. We know he had the access and the authority and the reach to be the head. But knowing and proving are two different countries, and the distance between them is where innocent men get destroyed and guilty men walk free. She pulled herself back together, visibly by force of will. One wrong call about a general is the kind of thing that ends careers and buries the truth so deep nobody ever finds it. If we accuse Jonathan Hayes and we're wrong, we're finished and the real traitor watches us burn and keeps killing. And if we're right and we can't prove it, she stopped. He's the most powerful man on this base. He can make all of us disappear into a review board and have those trucks in the valley moving before the paperwork's dry. Then what do? Harmon said. And for the first time that whole long night, Jack Harmon sounded lost because the enemy had just become a man he'd saluted 1,000 times. A man who had pinned medals on his chest, a man whose hand he'd shaken at 3 ramp ceremonies while 3 flag-draped cases rolled past. 3 ramp ceremonies. Harmon's face changed. Claire, he said slowly, 61 days ago. The mission where we lost Torres and Kim in Whitfield. The poison package. You said the same signature was there. He swallowed. Who signed off on that mission? Who gave the final launch authority 61 days ago? Claire's hands were already moving. She pulled the record, and when she found it, her face told them the answer before her mouth did. General Jonathan Hayes, she said quietly. Personally, he signed the launch authority himself, 61 days ago, on the mission that killed 3 of your men. She looked up. He doesn't sign launch authorities, Commander. Generals don't. That's below his level. In 3 years, how many of your launch authorities has Hayes personally signed? Harmon's voice was barely a whisper. 2, 61 days ago, and he stopped. And tonight, Claire finished for him. He signed tonight's too. Personally, the only 2 operations in 3 years he personally put his name on are the one that killed 3 of your men and the one that was supposed to kill the rest. She set the tablet down very gently as if it might go off. That's not proof, Commander. A defense lawyer would tear it apart in an afternoon, but it's a pattern, and patterns are how ghosts leave footprints. It was 2 hours and 19 minutes past the hour. The hostages sat in parked trucks with their engines cold. A driver named Wexler walked the halls above them, carrying other men's names. A general slept or didn't in an office at the top of the building, waiting to hear that the last of Harmon's team had died on a road he'd personally sent them down. And in a locked room 3 levels underground, 6 people stood in silence around the truth they'd been chasing all night now that they finally had their hands on it and understood that catching it might be the most dangerous thing any of them had ever done. He's expecting a report, Claire said finally. Hayes, he's expecting you to call back and confirm your men are dead. When you don't, when that confirmation never comes, he's going to know. Same as the driver, same as the valley. The clock I couldn't see, she looked at Harmon. It just started ticking on the most powerful man on this base. And when Jonathan Hayes realizes his operation failed and his people are still breathing, he is not going to run like a common traitor. He's going to do the one thing a corner general can do that a driver never could. Her voice was steady and quiet and certain. He's going to use his authority to make all of this, the poison, the driver, the hostages, us, disappear. Legally, with his own signature. And he's going to do it before sunrise. Harmon looked at the woman he had called sweetheart 6 hours ago in another lifetime, when he thought he was the smartest man in the room. Then we take him down before sunrise, Harmon said. Tell me how. Claire Morgan looked at the clock on the wall. Then she looked at the 6 hostages frozen on her screen. Then she looked at the locked door and beyond it up 3 levels of concrete to an office where a general was waiting for good news. First, she said, we bring your people home from that valley, because whatever we do to Hayes, the second we move on him, those trucks move too, and I will not trade 6 hostages for 1 general. We get them out first, then we go up those stairs. She turned to Rourke. Master Chief, that's south approach. How fast can your men be wheels up? Rourke looked at her, and whatever doubt had been eating him all night was gone now, burned clean away by the sight of the real enemy at last. Say the word, he said, and we're gone in 20 minutes. Claire looked at Harmon. Harmon looked at his men, and somewhere above them, a general reaching for a phone that was never going to bring him the answer he wanted. Be the word, Commander, Claire said softly. Harmon squared his shoulders, and the lost look was gone, and the man who did not lose people was back harder and clearer than he'd ever been. The word he said is go. The word was go, and the room emptied of everyone who carried a rifle in 90 seconds flat. But Claire caught Harmon at the door with a hand on his arm, and her grip was harder than he expected. Commander, one thing before you send them, and you need to hear it from me plain. She kept her voice low so only he could hear. The south approach is real. I verified every foot of it myself. But real doesn't mean safe. It means honest. Your men are going down a road that will not lie to them. That's all I can give you. I can't give you no ambush. I can't give you everybody home. I can give you a true map. After that, it's them and their training and their God. Do you understand the difference? Harmon looked at her for a long moment. 61 days ago, my men went down a road that lied to them. 3 of them didn't come back. His jaw tightened. I'll take a road that tells the truth over a road that kills my people them any night of my life. Send them true. That's all I've ever wanted. Then send them, Claire said and let go of his arm. It was 2 hours and 26 minutes past the hour when Rourke's element rolled off the base, and for the first time all night, Claire Morgan had to do the thing she was worst at, which was let go of a piece of the problem and trust someone else to carry it. Talk to me, Dr. Morgan. Harmon settled in beside her at the terminal, headset on, watching the same feed she was. You're the eyes now. Rourke's men are blind down there. Whatever you see, they see. Whatever you miss. I know what happens if I miss. Claire didn't look up. Her hands were steady on the keys, but Harmon, who had learned to read her over 6 hours, saw the thing underneath the steadiness. She was terrified. Not for herself, for the men in those trucks, moving through the dark toward a valley full of guns, carried on nothing but her word that the road was true. I'm not going to miss. I know you're not. You don't know that? Nobody knows that. Her voice was flat and fast. That's the lie people tell each other to feel better. I've been right all night. Being right all night is exactly the moment before you're wrong, because that's when you stop checking. She pulled up a second feed alongside the first. So I'm going to keep checking. Every frame, every shadow, every thermal bloom. Until Rourke's men are back inside these walls, I don't blink. She glanced at him. Keep me honest, Commander. If you see me getting sure of myself, you slap it out of me. Sure is what kills people. Harmon nodded slowly, and something in his chest ached because 6 hours ago he had looked at this woman and seen a jacket and a desk, and now he understood he had been in the presence of the most relentless, disciplined mind he'd ever encountered, and he had nearly sent it to the mop closet. It was 2 hours and 41 minutes past the hour when the South approach threw its first surprise. Movement? Claire's voice snapped tight. Rourke, hold your element. Movement on the ridge, you're 2 o'clock, 400 meters. Rourke's voice came back low and calm through the headset. Copy, hold. Talk to me, friendly or hostile. Working it. Claire's fingers flew. Give me 10 seconds. Thermal signature, small low to the ground, moving lateral, not toward you. Her eyes narrowed. It's Rourke, it's an animal. Goats. It's a goat herd bedded down on the ridge. You're clear, but hold 5 more seconds, because where there's a herd, there's sometimes a bow. There. Harmon saw at the same instant she did. Second signature. Bigger, upright, near the herd. A herder. Claire's voice dropped. There's a man with the goats, Rourke. Civilian, most likely. Bedded down for the night. He's 40 meters off your route. She thought fast. If you move now and he wakes, he sees you, and a scared herder with a phone can call the valley in 30 seconds and undo everything. If you wait for him to settle deeper, you lose 10 minutes you may not have. She looked at Harmon. Your call, Commander. This one's tactical. This one's yours, not mine. Harmon didn't hesitate. Rourke, skirt him, add the 10 minutes. We do not touch a civilian, and we do not risk him waking to gunfire. Go slow, go wide, go quiet. 10 minutes is cheaper than a phone call. Copy, going wide. A pause. Good eyes, Doc. We'd have walked right into that herder blind. Claire didn't answer. She was already back in the feed, already hunting the next thing, because that was who she was. It was 2 hours and 56 minutes past the hour when the second twist of the night's rescue came, and it came not from the valley but from the building above their heads. Pratt, who had stayed behind to keep watching the base, made a strangled sound. Commander, Dr. Morgan, Wexler's moving. Claire's head came up. The driver. Where? He left the motor pool 3 minutes ago. Pratt's voice climbed. He's not headed for his quarters. He's headed for the stairwell. He's coming down toward us, toward this level. He looked up, white. The driver's coming down to the level we're locked on. The room that had been all valley a moment ago snapped back to the concrete around them, and every person left in it remembered that the enemy was not only half a world away. He was in the building, and now he was in the stairwell. Why would the driver come down here? Harmon said low. Because the head sent him. Claire's mind was already 3 moves ahead. Hayes hasn't gotten his confirmation that your men are dead. He's nervous. So he's sending his hand to do what his hand does, walk to a terminal on this level and find out what's happening. He wants eyes on the operation status from a machine down here, close to your comms. She stood up, and if Wexler gets to a terminal on this level and pulls the real feed, he sees the South approach. He sees Rourke's element in the valley. He sees that your men aren't dead. They're executing a rescue Hayes knows nothing about. Her voice went cold. And the second Hayes learns that he tells the Valley to kill the hostages, and he starts making us disappear. Rourke's men are 20 minutes from those trucks. If Wexler reaches a terminal in the next 5, we lose everything. Then we stop him, Harmon said, already moving toward the door. Stop him how? Claire caught his arm again. You grab the driver in a hallway, he doesn't come quietly. There's a struggle, somebody hears, and now the whole base knows something's wrong on this level, and that message reaches Hayes just as fast as the drivers would have. You can't grab him, loud Commander, and you can't let him reach a terminal, which leaves a very narrow road between those two walls. Harmon stopped. You have an idea. I always have an idea. You may not like this one. Claire's eyes were bright and hard. We don't stop the driver from reaching a terminal. We let him reach one. Ours, the one right here. And we make sure that when he pulls the operation feed, what he sees is the story we want Hayes to believe, not the truth. She turned to Pratt. How long until he's on this level? 2 minutes, maybe less. Then in 2 minutes, I have to build a fake operation feed convincing enough to fool the man whose whole job is watching this operation. Claire dropped back into her chair and her hands became a blur. The driver's going to walk in here or near here and try a terminal. I'm going to make every terminal on this level show him the same thing. The assault element went down the north approach on schedule, hit heavy resistance, and is pinned, not dead, not victorious, pinned, bogged down in a firefight. She talked as she typed faster than seemed possible. That's the perfect lie for Hayes because a pinned team is a team that's about to stand on his poisoned road. It confirms his plan is working. It buys us the time for Rourke to reach the trucks. And it explains why there's no confirmation yet. You don't confirm a kill in the middle of a firefight. She hit a key. Done. Every screen on this level tells the same story now. And if the driver doesn't try a terminal down here, Harmon said, if he comes to this door instead, Claire's hands stopped for 1 second. Then you'll have to handle him quietly, and I mean quietly, and I mean without a shot and without a shout, because a single sound down here reaches Hayes and it's over. She looked up at him. Can you do that? Harmon's face was grim. I've done worse things quieter. It was 2 hours and 59 minutes past the hour and the door handle to the locked room moved. Everyone froze. It moved again. Someone was testing it from the outside. The lock held. And then muffled through the steel, a voice. Comms check on this level. Colonel Briggs's office needs the uplink status verified. Anybody in there? Harmon looked at Claire. Claire's mind raced. The driver was at the door using Briggs's name as a key and the wrong answer opened it. And the wrong silence was just as damning because a comms room this active at 3 a.m. didn't sit empty and dark. Harmon made a decision. He crossed to the door and he pitched his voice, bored and annoyed, the voice of a man interrupted in the middle of tedious work. Yeah, it's Harmon. Uplink's up. We're running the op. I've got it locked because I've got classified feeds live in here. Tell Briggs the status is in the system. He can pull it from any terminal on the level. I'm not opening a live comms room mid-operation for a driver Wexler. You know better than that. A silence on the other side of the door. A long one. Too long. Copy, Commander, the voice said finally. Didn't mean to interrupt. I'll pull it from the terminal. Footsteps moved away. Nobody in the room breathed until they faded. He's going for a terminal, Claire whispered. Down the hall. He's going to pull the feed I built. Her eyes were locked on her screen, watching the access logs. Come on, pull it. Read my story. Believe it. 10 seconds passed. 15. Then an access event bloomed on her screen. There, he's pulling the operation status. He's reading it. She held her breath. Read it, Wexler. Read that the team's pinned on the North Road. Read that it's working. Tell your general the good news. The access event closed. The footsteps faint through the walls moved back toward the stairwell. And then on Claire's screen, a message went up the chain from the terminal Wexler had used under Briggs's credential to an account near the top of the building. He's reporting to Hayes, Claire breathed. The driver just told the general the assault is pinned on the north approach and taking casualties. She looked up, and there was something fierce and disbelieving in her face. It worked. Hayes thinks his plan is working. He thinks your men are dying on his road right now. He's going to sit up there and wait for the kill confirmation, and while he waits, Rourke reaches the trucks, Harmon said. Rourke reaches the trucks. Claire spun back to the valley feed. How far out are they? She checked, and her stomach dropped. It was 3 hours and 8 minutes past the hour, and Rourke's element was nearly on top of the compound, and something in the valley had changed. Rourke, her voice cut sharp. Rourke, hold. Something's wrong. Talk to me, Doc. Rourke's whisper was pure ice. We're 200 meters from the trucks. What do you see? The trucks were cold, engines off, hostages loaded but parked because Hayes told them to hold. Claire's eyes raced across the thermal feed. But now, Rourke, the engines just turned over, all 6, 30 seconds ago. They're warming up. They're getting ready to move. Her hands flew across the keys, tearing through the trader's channels. Why now? Hayes thinks his plan's working. He told them to hold. So why are they? She stopped, and a cold understanding washed over her face. Oh no. What? Harmon said. Claire, what? The herder. Her voice was hollow. The goat herder on the ridge. Rourke skirted him wide. We thought we got past him clean. She looked up. We didn't. He woke. He saw something, a shape, a movement enough. And he called it in. Not to us, to the valley. A local herder with a phone, exactly what I was afraid of. Her hands clenched. The enemy in the valley just got a report of movement on the south approach. They don't know it's a rescue, but they know somebody's coming from a direction that isn't the north road they were told to watch. And a smart enemy who suddenly learns he's being approached from an unexpected direction does one thing with hostages he can't defend. She looked at Harmon, and the horror was naked in her voice. He moves them. Now, before whoever's on that south road arrives, the window I bought you 4 hours ago just slammed shut. Rourke has about 90 seconds before those trucks roll, and once they're moving through that valley in the dark, we lose them. We lose all 6. Rourke. Harmon was on the headset instantly, and his voice was the voice of a man who has run out of clever and has only speed left. Rourke, the trucks are about to move with the hostages inside. You are out of time and out of setup. This is a hard call, and it's mine, and I'm making it. Can you take the courtyard now, right now, as you are? A pause, 2 seconds that lasted a year. We can take it, Rourke said. It's not clean, we don't have the blocking element set, but we can take it. Give the word and we're moving. Harmon looked at Claire. Claire looked at the truck's engines running hostages inside 30 seconds from rolling into a darkness that would swallow them forever. There's no good answer here, Claire said quietly. If they hit now, they hit under strength and unset, and men could die. If they wait, the trucks roll and the hostages are gone. Both roads have blood on them, Commander. This one's yours. Harmon closed his eyes for 1/2 of 1 second. Torres, Kim, Whitfield. 3 ramps, 3 flags. 3 mothers he'd lied to because a road had lied to them first. Not again. Not on a true road. Not while he had breath. Rourke, he said, take the courtyard. Get our people. Go. Executing. And then there was nothing to do but watch. It was 3 hours and 9 minutes past the hour, and in a locked room 3 levels underground, 6 people stood frozen around a thermal feed, watching pale shapes move fast across a courtyard half a world away, while Claire Morgan called out everything she could see in a voice stripped down to pure function. Rourke, 2 squirters breaking from the lead truck. Your left moving to flank. I see them. They're behind the low wall. On it. Rourke's voice tight, and then the flat, distant sound that Claire would hear in her sleep for years, the sound of the thing she spent her whole life trying to prevent and could now only witness. Hostages still in the trucks, all 6 thermal signatures accounted for, they're still in the vehicles. Rourke, the driver of truck 3, is reaching for something that can't tell us if it's a weapon or the ignition. Say again which truck. Truck 3, the middle one, driver's side. A pause. The longest of Claire's life. Truck 3's secured, Rourke said. Driver's down, reaching for the ignition. He was going to run. A breath. We've got hands on the hostages. We've got hands on all 6. They're alive. Say again, all 6 hostages are alive and in our hands. The room did not cheer. It was too soon to cheer, and every man there knew it. But something moved through it, a loosening, a held breath, finally let part way out. Don't celebrate. Claire said, and her voice shook now, for the first time the discipline cracking just at the edges. Not yet. You have to get them out. Rourke, you're under strength, you're unset, and the whole valley just heard that fight. You have to move now, back up the South Road the way you came before anybody in that valley organizes a response. Go. Go now. I'll watch the road behind you. Moving. 6 hostages, all operators, accounted for moving to extraction. It was 3 hours and 16 minutes past the hour when Rourke's element started back up the true road with 6 Americans who had thought they would die in the dark, and Claire Morgan watched every meter of that road behind them, and for 11 minutes she did not blink, exactly as she'd promised. And it was 3 hours and 27 minutes past the hour when the extraction bird lifted off with all of them aboard that Jack Harmon finally let himself put a hand on the back of a chair and lean on it because his legs had gone strange under him. They're out, Pratt said, and his voice cracked in half. They're out, all of them. Everybody's out. Everybody's out, Harmon repeated, and he had to say it twice to believe it. Claire didn't move, Foos. She was still watching the feed, still tracking the bird, and Harmon realized she was going to watch it all the way home, that she would not stand down until every single person was inside a wall she trusted. Dr. Morgan, he said gently, you can breathe. They're on the bird. I'll breathe when they're on the ground, Claire said, but her hands, he saw, had started to tremble now that they didn't have to be steady anymore, the way a surgeon's hands sometimes shake only after the last stitch is tied. 61 days ago, I couldn't save 3 men I never met. Tonight I got 6 home, and I got your whole team home. Her voice was very quiet. I don't get to feel that yet. There's still a general upstairs, but later. Later, I'm going to feel that one for a long time. Harmon looked at her, and there were things he wanted to say that he didn't have words for, so he said the only true thing he had. My brother didn't teach you that, he said. I mean your brother. Whoever taught you to check the frame. That road you sent Rourke down, that true road that got 6 people home. He swallowed. Your brother would be... He stopped because it wasn't his to say. I'm sorry about your brother, and I think he'd be something watching you tonight. I don't have the word for it, but something. Claire's jaw worked. She didn't look away from the screen. Thank you, she said barely above a whisper. And then, because she was who she was, she straightened and the surgeon came back into her spine, and she turned away from the valley for the first time in an hour. But we're not done, Commander. We got the hostages out from under him, which means in a very short time, General Jonathan Hayes is going to stop getting the reports he wants and start getting a picture he can't control. She looked toward the door and beyond it up 3 levels of concrete. He sent his driver down to confirm your men were dying. His driver told him they were pinned and taking casualties on the North Road, the lie I built. But that lie has a shelf life. Sooner or later, Hayes learns there was never a fight on the North Road. He learns the hostages are gone. He learns his whole operation was a ghost story we told him to keep him calm while we emptied his valley. Her eyes came back to Harmon. And when Jonathan Hayes understands that a cybersecurity analyst he's never met just ran his own base against him for 6 hours, he is going to do exactly what I told you he'd do. He's going to reach for his authority, and he's going to try to make all of this disappear before sunrise. Us included. How long? Harmon said. Minutes, not hours. Claire was already pulling up something new, some last piece of the machine she'd been building all night in the back of her mind, while the front of it flew a rescue. The driver's report bought us a little runway, but the second Hayes tries to reach the valley and nobody answers the second he calls to confirm the kill and gets silence, he'll know. And a cornered general doesn't run. He signs. He'll have us pulled into a security review, classified, sealed, and he'll have the evidence I've spent all night gathering locked away as compromised, and he'll do it all with his own legitimate authority, and on paper it will look like he saved the base from us. She looked up. Which is why we don't wait for him to reach for his authority. We take it away from him first. Take away a general's authority, Harmon said slowly. With what? Claire Morgan looked at the mountain of evidence she'd built through the longest night of both their lives. The poison package, the borrowed credentials, the driver's footpath through 3 rooms, the re-imaged machine, the 2 launch authorities in 3 years, both signed personally, both ending in dead Americans or nearly so. The message chain running from a driver's hands to an office at the top of the building. 61 days of a ghost wearing other men's names. With the truth, she said, all of it. Assembled, sealed, and sent not to Hayes and not through any channel Hayes can touch, but straight over his head to the one authority on this earth even a general can't make disappear. She started to type, and for the first time all night, there was something almost like peace in her face, the peace of a person who has carried a heavy thing a long way and can finally set it down where it belongs. He spent 61 days making sure no one man could ever be blamed because every fingerprint belonged to someone else. He was so careful. He was brilliant. She hit a key, and he forgot the one thing brilliant men always forget, that somewhere someone might be watching the frame instead of the picture. She looked up at Harmon. Get General Hayes' superiors on a secure line, Commander. The real one. The line he can't reach. Because in about 4 minutes, I'm going to hand them a man they trusted with a base full of lives, and I'm going to hand him to them so completely that not even he can sign his way out of it. Harmon looked at her. Then he reached for the phone that went up past Hayes to the only place left above him. Do it, he said. Bury him in the truth. The line went up past Hayes into the only place left above him, and it rang once before a voice answered that did not belong to anyone on that base. It was 3 hours and 34 minutes past the hour, and Claire Morgan had 4 minutes of runway and a lifetime of preparation, and she used both. This is Dr. Claire Morgan, Special Operations Command, assigned direct to the operation running out of this base tonight, she said, and her voice was steady as a level. I'm going to send you a sealed evidence package in the next 60 seconds. I need you to receive it before General Jonathan Hayes learns his operation failed, because the moment he learns it, he is going to use his command authority to bury it, and you will never see it again. I'm not asking you to believe me. I'm asking you to open the package and let it tell you itself. There was a silence on the line, the silence of a very senior person deciding whether the middle of the night was worth their trust. Send it, the voice said. She sent it, and then she talked them through it piece by piece, and Harmon stood beside her and watched a lifetime's worth of patience pay itself out in 4 minutes. She didn't editorialize, she didn't accuse. She let the frame speak. The poison package in the 6 minutes it took to move an enemy off a ridgeline. Reyes's borrowed login from a room Reyes never worked in. Briggs's authority signing a reimage that erased a machine. Rourke's credential used while Rourke stood in front of 8 witnesses. The driver named Wexler, the one man near all 3 terminals, the furniture nobody watched. And above the driver, feeding him coats to wear the 2 launch authorities, in 3 years, both signed personally by the same hand, one ending in 3 flag-draped cases, and the other meant to end in a dozen more. Every fingerprint in this belongs to an innocent man, Claire said quietly into the phone. That was the design. He made sure no single credential could ever be traced to him because he never used his own. He used everyone else's. The only thing he couldn't fake was the pattern of a human being walking through a building, and the only thing above that was the pattern of who in 3 years reached down below his own rank to personally put his name on the 2 operations that killed Americans. A pause. I can't tell you it's a confession. I can tell you it's a shape, and the shape has one man standing in the center of it, and that man is the commanding general of this base. The silence on the other end of the line was different now. It was the silence of belief arriving. It was 3 hours and 41 minutes past the hour when the voice on the phone said the words that ended it. Dr. Morgan, stay in that room. Keep it locked. Do not let General Hayes near you, and do not let him near that evidence. We're moving on him now. It'll be 15 minutes. A pause. You understand what you've done tonight. I understand I'm not done until your people have him, Claire said. 15 minutes is a long time for a cornered man with a general's stars. Move fast. She hung up, and then for the first time in 6 hours, Claire Morgan had nothing left to do with her hands, and that was almost worse than the fear. 15 minutes, Harmon said. Can he do anything in 15 minutes? He can try. Claire's eyes went to the door. He can't reach the valley because the valley's empty and the hostages are gone. He can't reach the evidence because it's above him now. But he can reach us. He knows something's wrong by now, Commander. He has to. He's been waiting an hour for a kill confirmation that isn't coming. A man that smart has already started to feel the floor move. She looked at Harmon. If he comes down here in the next 15 minutes, he's not coming to sign paperwork. He's coming because he's out of paperwork. It was 3 hours and 46 minutes past the hour when the door handle moved for the second time that night. Nobody breathed. It moved slowly this time, deliberately. And then a voice came through the steel, and it was not the driver's voice, and it was not bored, and it was not pretending to be anything. It was calm, warm even, the voice of a man who had commanded thousands and been obeyed by all of them. "Jack, it's General Hayes, open the door." Harmon looked at Claire. Claire shook her head one small motion. "Sir," Harmon said, and to his own surprise, his voice held. "We're mid-operation in here. Classified feeds live. I can't open a comms room with active Jack." The warmth was still there, but underneath it now was something else, patient and cold. "I've been in this business 30 years. Don't run an old man's own playbook on him. There's no operation. Your assault element never went down the North Road. There was never a firefight. The status feed on this level says my team is pinned and taking casualties, and I know for a fact that is a lie because I built the road they were supposed to die on, and no one died on it tonight." A pause, which means someone in that room is very, very good. Good enough to feed me my own story back to me for the last 2 hours. I'd like to meet them. Open the door. The room was frozen. Pratt's hand had drifted toward his sidearm. Harmon caught it with a look and a small shake of his head. "Not yet. Not a shot. Not down here." Claire stood up. "Dr. Morgan," Harmon said low and sharp, "sit down." "He already knows I'm here," Claire said quietly. "He said, someone in that room. There's no card left to hide. And a man talking through a door is a man buying time his people upstairs, or worse, a way out of this building before your superior's people arrive." She looked at Harmon. "The only thing that matters now is keeping him standing on the other side of this door for 9 more minutes. He wants to talk to whoever beat him. So let me talk to him, through the door, because every second he spends talking to me is a second he's not running. And running is the only thing left that could still save him." Harmon held her eyes for a long moment. Then he stepped back from the door and gave it to her the way he'd given her the head of the table 6 hours ago. Claire stepped up to the steel. "General Hayes," she said, "my name is Dr. Claire Morgan, Cybersecurity and Battlefield Intelligence, Special Operations Command. I'm the one who's been feeding you your own story, and I'd rather you stayed right where you are on that side of the door while we talk. I think you'd rather that too if you think about it. It's the last conversation you get to have as a general." A silence. And then through the door, Jonathan Hayes laughed, softly, almost with respect. "Morgan," he said the name like he was filing it away. "I don't know you. That's the remarkable thing. I know every intelligence officer who's ever touched my operations. I vet them personally. And I have never heard your name." A pause. "How did you find the frame?" Claire went very still, because she understood in that instant that Hayes had said the one-word frame that no one who hadn't done exactly what she did all night would think to say. He knew. He knew precisely what she'd done and precisely how, because he was in his own dark way, the only other person in the building who thought the way she did. "You already know how I found it," she said. "Same way you built it. You spent 61 days attacking the frame instead of the picture because you knew everyone trusts the picture. You changed the road, not the map. It's brilliant, General. It's genuinely brilliant. I've been hunting people who manipulate battlefield data my whole career, and I have never seen it done as cleanly as you did it." Her voice didn't waver. "And I found it the only way it could ever be found, by being the one person on this base who checks the frame too." The silence on the other side of the door stretched. "Why," Claire said, and now Claude's response was interrupted. Part 5, lưu ý viết đủ 7.000 đến 7.500 từ, liên kết liên mạch với các phần trước trong câu chuyện và hội thoại tạo thành một câu chuyện liền mạch khi ghép lại. Mỗi phần liền mạch với phần trước không giới thiệu lại câu chuyện ở đầu phần mới, liên kết các phần của câu chuyện một cách liền mạch, sử dụng câu chuyện tiếp giữa các phần, duy trì chủ đề, tránh ngắt quãng đột ngột, không sử dụng gạch đấu dòng hoặc tiêu đề phụ phong cách, truyền Mỹ Hoa Kỳ giống văn giàu cảm xúc chân thực và gần gũi, không mô tả cảnh, tập trung vào hành động, cảm xúc và tâm lý nhân vật. Viết phần 5 đạt điểm 10 trên 10 và bổ sung tiết tấu câu chuyện nhanh, sửa lỗi AI, kể theo ngôi thứ 3 giữ độ kịch tính, không viết lên màn. Kết thúc dùng câu khẳng định mạnh để khép lại câu chuyện rõ ràng, trọn vẹn. Lưu ý trả lời trong một tin nhắn, không nhảy sang mục document mới. 2 đến 3 phút cần có mini climax và đặt 10 đến 15 mini climax, mỗi phần cứ 10 đến 12 phút có một twist lớn sâu sắc đan xen mini cliffhanger mạnh hơn. Tăng tính tự nhiên cho phản ứng của các nhân vật, thêm nhịp điệu kịch tính thực tế và gần gũi. Mỗi 8 đến 10 phút cần có móc giữ chân khán giả. Lưu ý không mô tả cảnh viết văn bản phù hợp với TDS và chỉ cần viết nội dung và viết đúng lệnh nhé. Show more. Why Claire said, and now her voice softened, not out of weakness but out of strategy, because a man talking about himself is a man not walking away. You had everything, General. 30 years, stars on your shoulder, men who'd have followed you into fire on your word alone. Why sell them? Help me understand it, because I've been staring at your work all night, and I can see the how, and I can't see the why, and I don't think I can carry this the rest of my life without knowing the why. For a long moment, there was nothing through the door but silence. Then Hayes spoke and the warmth was gone, and what was left was something older and more tired than anything Claire had expected. You think it was money? His voice was flat. Everyone always thinks it's money. It wasn't money. A pause. Do you know how many men I've buried, Dr. Morgan? In 30 years, do you know how many letters I've signed? Dear family, your son died a hero. Claire heard Harmon's breath catch behind her because those were his words too, the words he'd spoken about his own 3 letters. I stopped counting at 200. I stopped counting because counting was the only thing keeping me human, and I couldn't afford to be human anymore. The voice hardened, and every single one of them died for policies decided by men who'd never smelled cordite, men who moved us around a map like furniture. So one day I decided that if my men were going to be furniture, I'd at least be the one deciding which ones and when. I'd control the losses instead of grieving them. I told myself I was saving more than I spent. A breath. You want a monster doctor. I'm sorry. I'm just a tired old man who lost the thread of why any of it mattered, one funeral at a time. It was 3 hours and 52 minutes past the hour, and Claire Morgan stood on one side of a steel door and felt something she had not expected to feel for the man who tried to murder a team she'd spent all night saving. Not forgiveness, never that, but recognition. The recognition of a wound gone septic. She had come into this room hunting a ghost, and she'd found at the end of it a broken human being. Torres, she said quietly. Kim, Whitfield, 61 days ago. Were they furniture, General? Were they the ones you decided you could spend? The silence that came back was the worst answer of all. They trusted you, Claire said, and her voice didn't rise, and that was what made it land. Every man you spent trusted you completely. That's the only reason your plan ever worked. You didn't beat the frame with brilliance, General. You beat it with trust. You spent the one thing men give you that you can never earn back, and you spent it on your own. She stepped closer to the door. Commander Harmon wrote 3 letters 2 months ago. He stood at 3 ramps with his hand over his heart. He told 3 mothers it was quick, it was clean, nothing could have been done, and he believed it. Because he trusted you. You made an honest man into a liar to 3 grieving women, and he didn't even know you'd done it. Her voice dropped. That's what you spent, General, not men. Trust. And there's not enough time left in your life to earn back a nickel of it. Behind her, Jack Harmon had gone completely still, and his eyes were wet, and he was looking at the door as though he could see through it to the man who had used his grief as a tool. It was 3 hours and 56 minutes past the hour, and on the other side of the door, a general who had run out of coats to wear made his last decision. You're stalling me, Doctor. Hayes's voice sharpened. You've been stalling me since I got to this door, which means someone's coming, which means you've already sent it up. A pause and then something Claire had not heard from him before the smallest crack of fear. How high? How high did you send it? Higher than you can reach, Claire said. It's done, General. It was done before you ever came down those stairs. There's no terminal you can wipe, and no authority you can sign, and no man left in this building whose name you can borrow. Every code is gone. It's just you now standing in a hallway, being exactly who you are for the first time in 61 days. She pressed her hand flat against the cold steel. Stop running. There's nowhere left. And I think some part of you has been wanting someone to catch you for a long time. That's why you came down here to talk to me instead of running for the gate. A man who wanted to escape doesn't stop to meet the person who beat him. You came down here because you're tired, General. So put it down. Put all of it down. The silence stretched and stretched. And then through the door, so quiet she almost missed it. General Jonathan Hayes said one word. Yes. It was 3 hours and 59 minutes past the hour when the elevator at the end of the level opened, and the people from above Hayes arrived, and Claire Morgan opened the door at last, and there was no struggle and no shot and no shout. There was only a tired old man with stars on his shoulders, standing in a hallway waiting exactly where she'd asked him to stay. He looked at Claire for a long moment, this analyst he'd never vetted, never seen, never once thought to watch. The frame, he said again softly, almost to himself, and then they took him. Harmon stood in the doorway and watched them walk his general away down the corridor. And he did not feel triumph, and he did not feel relief, and it would be a long time before he could name what he felt. But part of it was grief, because a man he'd have died for had turned out to be the man he'd nearly died because of, and both of those things were true at once, and neither one canceled the other. It was 4 hours and 11 minutes past the hour when Rourke's extraction bird touched down on the base, and every hostage walked off it on their own 2 feet, and Claire finally let herself breathe. She was still sitting at the terminal when they brought the 6 of them through the corridor, outside 6 Americans who had been loading into trucks in the Pura 90 minutes ago and were now home blinking wrapped in blankets, alive. She didn't go out to see them. She stayed at her terminal watching the feeds go quiet one by one, and Harmon found her there. You should go see them, he said, the people you saved. They should see the face. They shouldn't, Claire said. They should see Rourke's face and the faces of the men who walked into that courtyard for them. Not mine. I sat in a room, Commander. They did the bleeding. She almost smiled. Bleeding, I'm tired. You sat in a room, Harmon said, and he pulled a chair around and sat down in front of her, so she had to look at him. You sat in a room and you found a poisoned map in 20 minutes that 3 verification layers missed. You found a borrowed login and a wipe machine and a driver nobody watched, and a general nobody would dare suspect. You kept 6 trucks parked with a lie you built in 2 minutes. You flew a rescue down a true road with your voice, and you talked a general with 30 years in a hallway full of exits into standing still and waiting to be arrested. He leaned forward. I've been doing this 19 years. I have never not once seen anyone do what you did tonight. And this morning, I called you sweetheart and told you the mop closet was down the hall. Claire looked at him. You did. I did. Harmon didn't flinch from it. I told you I'd apologize the right way when it was over. It's over. He held her eyes. I'm sorry. Not for the word. The word was nothing. The word was a stupid man being stupid. I'm sorry for the thing under the word. I looked at you and I decided I already knew what you were worth, and I was so sure I almost marched my whole team into a grave to prove it. You didn't just save my men tonight, Dr. Morgan. You saved me from the worst version of myself. The one who thinks certainty is the same thing as knowing. He swallowed. That's the apology. I don't know how to make it bigger than that. Claire was quiet for a long moment. You don't have to make it bigger, she said finally. You made it real. That's rarer. A pause, and then something eased in her face, some armor she'd worn all night finally coming loose. You want to know the truth, Commander? Every room I walk into looks at me the way you did this morning. Every single one. I've made peace with it. It's even useful people tell a secretary things they'd never tell an intelligence officer, and I've caught more than one traitor because he didn't bother to lower his voice around the furniture. She almost smiled again. But it gets heavy, carrying it, being underestimated your whole career, and choosing every time to save the people who underestimate you anyway, instead of standing back and letting them learn the hard way. She looked at him. You're the first one in a long time who turned around mid-room and actually saw it. That means something, more than the apology. Thank you for that. It was 4 hours and 22 minutes past the hour when General Jonathan Hayes' replacement arrived on base, flown in ahead of the sun by the same authority Claire had reached over Hayes' head, and his name was General Marcus Reese, and he did not come to the briefing room to give a speech. He came to see the woman who'd done it. The room was different when Reese walked in. The men who'd laughed at Claire 6 hours ago were still there, and work was back now, dust and cordite still on him and Pratt and Harmon. And every one of them came to attention when the general entered, and Reese waved them down, and then he did the thing that Jack Harmon would remember for the rest of his life. Reese walked past all of them, past Harmon, past Rourke, past every operator in the room. And he stopped in front of Claire Morgan in her plain, dark jacket sitting at her terminal, and he did not tower over her, and he did not talk down to her. Dr. Morgan, General Reese said, I've read what you sent up, all of it, every layer. He paused. I've been doing this longer than most of the men in this room have been alive, and I have never seen a cleaner piece of work. You caught something 61 days old buried under a general's stars in 6 hours alone while running a hostage rescue at the same time. Do you understand how impossible that is? It wasn't impossible, sir, Claire said. It was just tedious. Impossible is a word people use for tedious things they didn't want to do themselves. A few of the operators laughed real laughter, now warm and directed with her instead of at her, and even Reese's mouth twitched. You lost 3 men 61 days ago, Reese said, turning to Harmon now, but keeping Claire beside him. Torres, Kim, Whitfield. I read their files on the flight in. Their families were told they died in a firefight that couldn't be helped. His voice hardened. That was a lie. And because of what this woman found tonight, those 3 families are going to get the truth, and the man who spent their sons is going to answer for it in front of a court with his own signature as the witness against him. Do you understand what that means, Commander? Those mothers have been grieving a lie for 2 months. Dr. Morgan just gave them back the truth. It won't bring their boys home, but it's the difference between a wound that heals and a wound that festers forever. He looked at Claire. You didn't just save 6 hostages and a SEAL team tonight, Doctor. You gave 3 grieving families the one thing no one else on this earth could give them. That's not intelligence work. That's something else. I don't have a word for it either. Claire looked down at her hands. It was 4 hours and 31 minutes past the hour when General Reese did the thing that ended it, that turned the whole long night on its axis one final time, and he did it looking at the room full of hard men who had spent the first hour of that night laughing at the woman in the plain jacket. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. There's an operation still open, Reese said. The valley isn't fully cleared. There are loose fighters. There's a network we now have to roll up. There's 61 days of Hayes' damage we have to trace before sunrise. It's not over. He turned. So here's what's going to happen. Effective now, this operation and every intelligence decision inside it runs through Dr. Claire Morgan. Not around her, not past her, through her. He looked at each man in turn, at Harmon, at Rourke, at Pratt, at every operator who'd laughed 6 hours ago. Every plan you build, she verifies. Every road you walk, she checks the frame first. Any man in this room who has a problem taking a call from a cybersecurity analyst in a plain jacket can walk out that door right now, and I'll have his replacement here by noon. A pause. But I don't think anybody's walking out, because every man in this room is alive this morning for exactly one reason. And she's sitting right there. The room was silent. And then General Marcus Reese said the 5 words that Jack Harmon had waited his whole career to understand, the weight of the 5 words that closed the door on the man he'd been that morning, forever. She's in command. Follow her. Nobody questioned it. That was the thing Harmon marveled at, standing in a room full of the hardest, proudest men he knew, men who'd bled on 4 continents, men who bristled at taking orders from anyone who hadn't earned it in the dirt. He waited for the resentment, the muttering, the wounded pride. It didn't come, because they'd all seen it now. They'd watched her do it. They'd heard her voice bring 6 people home down a road she'd checked with her own eyes, and they'd heard her talk a general into standing still. And there was not one man in that room who did not know all the way down that he was breathing that morning because she had refused to trust a picture. Rourke was the first to move. He crossed the room, dust and all, and he stopped in front of Claire, and he came to attention, and he saluted her, a master chief with 20 years saluting a civilian analyst, and it was the most sincere thing Jack Harmon had ever seen a man do. Ma'am, Rourke said, whatever comes next, wherever you point us, we're yours. One by one, the others followed. Pratt, the men who'd laughed, every one of them, until the whole room stood facing the woman they tried to send to the mop closet. And Claire Morgan looked back at them, and for the first time all night, her composure nearly broke, because being underestimated, her whole life had built a wall around her, and a room full of hard men choosing to see her had just found the one door in it. All right, she said when she could. Her voice was steady again, the surgeon back in it. Then let's finish this. Sit down. Bring me the raw feeds, the real ones verified, nothing I haven't touched. We've got a network to roll up before sunrise, and a lot of Hayes damage still buried in these systems, and I intend to find every last thread of it before that man ever sees the inside of a courtroom. She looked at Harmon. Commander, take the head of the table. It's yours. You lead these men into the valley. I'll make sure the map is true. Harmon looked at her. Then he shook his head slowly, and he did the thing that finished his own long journey from the man he'd been at dawn. He pulled out the chair at the head of the table. His chair, the one he'd sat in 19 years, and he stepped back from it, and he gestured for her to take it. No, Harmon said. The general said it, and the general's right, and I've been wrong about you for exactly 1 day too long. You sit here. I'll take the field. That's the way it should be, and I think part of me knew it the second you told me my map was a lie. He held the chair. You see what the rest of us miss? That's not a job for the end of the table. Sit down, Dr. Morgan, you're in command. And Claire Morgan, who had walked into that room at dawn to laughter and the word sweetheart, who had been told the kitchen was down the hall and the filing office was 2 floors up, who had swallowed every insult and saved every last one of them. Anyway, Claire Morgan stood up and crossed the room one final time past the men who now watched her the way you watch someone you owe your life to, and she sat down at the head of the table. The sun came up over the base an hour later. 6 hostages slept in clean beds. A SEAL team drank coffee with hands that had nearly not lived to hold the cups. 3 grieving families, half a world away, were about to be given back the truth. And a general with stars on his shoulders sat in a locked room of his own, now waiting to answer for the men he'd spent. Jack Harmon stood at the back of the briefing room and watched the woman he had underestimated run the operation with a calm, relentless brilliance that made every proud man in the place lean toward her voice, and he understood finally and completely the lesson that had cost him a night and nearly cost him everything. Real leadership was never about being the loudest man in the room. It was about being the one person willing to check the frame while everyone else trusted the picture. It was about the quiet ones who see what everyone else misses. It was about her. The men laughed when she walked in. They saluted when she took command. And every single one of them went home alive because a woman in a plain dark jacket refused even once to be what they'd decided she was. That is the whole truth of it. The quiet woman they underestimated was the reason they all came home. And no one ever again made the mistake of asking Dr. Claire Morgan if she was lost.